Tonight on Top Story, Energy Ministry fights off claims Doomsaw is back as it hits back at minorities saying they lack the moral right to criticize government over recent power outages.
It's interesting that our friends who presided over a 4-year period of outages are now calling a situation where we have a day of outages Doomsaw. Clearly, we are not at that point.
But we're asking, is the assurance enough as business owners lament over biting impact of the intermittent power outages on their businesses?
We lost a huge amount of money 3 consecutive times.
We have to off all our gas and about 5 or 10, then to come back again. Then we wait and they off it. They off it again.
And Top Story, as always, is brought to you by Vodafone. Further together. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. Now, the Energy Ministry is fighting off claims there is Doomsaw, which has necessitated calls for a load shedding timetable. Deputy Energy Minister Andrew Ejapa-Mensah insists the challenges that triggered recent power outages in the country have been fully addressed. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, business owners in the capital Accra say their entities risk collapse as they lament the impact of power outages and intermittent power cuts on their work. Some communities in the capital were plunged into darkness Wednesday night, with others also experiencing power cuts during the day. My colleague Kenneth Jesse visited some communities that experienced power outages and joins me in studio with more. Ken, what did you find?
Well, we visited a few places. We visited cold store operators. We visited mechanics. And they're saying that they are a bit worried about the recent power outages. Would have not been made clear whether it's Doomsaw or not, and it's affecting their businesses. So they're calling on the power authorities, that is ECG and Co., to at least give them a timetable so that they know when to adequately prepare for Doomsaw.
It's affected us a lot. That was last month, December, around 15th to 20th. Yeah, it affected us a lot. We were having a job on our hand, which is supposed to be delivered for a Christmas program. And for some time now, we sat down without any job. So when we had that job, it was a huge amount of money that we were supposed to do so that we can settle our debts and so on. But unfortunately, we started a job and on the way, the light went off. So we sat down thinking maybe some 2 hours, 3 hours time, the lights might come. But we waited to no avail. The light couldn't come. So the owner of the job also got depressed because there is pressure on him. He's supposed to deliver the job the following day. So the guy came for the whole job that day and sent it back to another place for it to be printed, where they had these generators and so on.
Oh, what to me fear ne adwuma mu nyina. Na me pese me hu say Doomsaw no say yadura. Omo shade time no hu say ene me ba adwuma mini light ene some paper me afa akwa me want to makopa bi afa na so ba betena ho wudu adwuma ma na fon ne adum no wa wontimi nya hwe wo so wo the end of the day no wa mfa hwe anko fie eto me hu say bi na ato ye ya we nya de a de be se ko bi asida eto me hu say na aba etin say na Tuesday me say me nya me hu say Wednesday me nka ho na me dey budget eto me so me ha pa me team no ha me pa.
Well, let's bring in a Deputy Minister for Energy, Andrew Ejapa-Mensah, who says the situation has been completely resolved. He joins us on the phone lines now for more on this. Grateful for joining us, sir. Now, you say that the issue has been fully resolved. Can you give us an overview of the extent of this issue we were dealing with?
Let me say good evening to your terrorists. So, in December, WAPCO made a demand for payment of the outstanding invoices due from GNPC. GNPC then made some payment of about $3 million, a little over that, and indicated to WAPCO that they were working to procure the rest of the money from ECG to enable them pay. So we wrote to the ministry. We then wrote to ECG and asked them to take steps to pay for that amount. Subsequently, it became obvious that ECG may not be in a position to pay. And so we escalated the request to the Ministry of Finance. We engaged WAPCO. Initially, they had indicated we were going to take the power out on the 29th of December. They extended it to the 5th. In fact, initially also to the 2nd and subsequently to the 5th. Whilst we worked to procure approvals within the Ministry of Finance system to enable them pay. Unfortunately, the approval to pay delayed. I'm sure, as you're very much aware, arising out of the holidays. And so on the 9th, at about 4 p.m., we got notification that peak period WAPCO services were going to be withdrawn. And so we engaged with them. We reached out to Ministry of Finance. And yesterday, the 10th, they got approvals to advance the sum of $10 million to WAPCO, which was communicated to WAPCO. And accordingly, they restored the provision of the service with notification, I believe, around 8 p.m. of last night. So that's as far as I know, respect to the outage that we experienced 2 days ago.
But
it's been resolved. Services have been fully restored. And I don't have any indication from the Systems Control Center that is manned by GRADECO that there are any further outages as a result of lack of gas transportation services from the west, which is from Abuaze to Tema, to service power plants in the east.
But why does it always have to take, IPP, state-owned entities like Ghana Gas, VRA, and even companies like WAPCO to threaten or to cut off power supply before the nation gets into act and pay them what is due?
So, prior to 2018, that was when the cash waterfall mechanism was introduced. Payments by ECG to all the energy sector value chain players were discretionary. Okay. And so that led to a huge accumulation of debt. And so the energy sector reform program was rolled out. And as part of the measures to resolve issues in that sector, the cash waterfall mechanism and the gas clearinghouse mechanisms were introduced so that whatever revenues that ECG collects is shared within a certain formula for every energy sector player to have part of their invoices. What then that means is that not all the invoices are paid by the cash waterfall mechanism, because the revenue that ECG collects is not enough to pay for all the invoices. So Ministry of Finance complemented and took a portion of it, to pay. So over time, there's been an outstanding obligation that payments are made as and when. We realized that that system itself had a few issues, and so we've reviewed it and have since August rolled out a new cash waterfall mechanism, which has introduced what we call the two-tier system, to the effect that all IPPs are categorized as tier 1. And ECG has negotiated some fixed invoice O&M with them, in total amounting to about $43 million per month. So the tier 1 then ensures that all of them are paid their invoices for the month that they submitted. So from August to date, all IPPs are current. There's no debts that are accumulating, if you like. But there's a huge outstanding debt. At the last check, about 1.75 billion, of which about 30-35% is excess capacity payments due.
Is it cedis or dollars?
USD.
Okay.
All right. And so the WAPCO historical and its current invoices are what amounts to the 19 million. Okay. With respect to the IPPs, what we've done is the government has ring-fenced that debt and is negotiating some repayment program with them. Negotiations have been ongoing. We've concluded some of them. There are a few that are still outstanding, which means that the negotiations have not been concluded. And the Ministry of Finance has agreed to a very large extent and exchange term sheets be reviewed back and forth. So by and large, that has been taken care of. Okay. And what we have done also is to move the WAPCO payments, a portion of it, to tier 1, okay, going forward, so that becomes part of the fixed amount that ECG pays. I say a part of it because the gas transportation services that WAPCO renders does not only go to power producers. Some of it go to non-power producers that the gas aggregator then has GSAs with, okay? And so they generate some revenue from there that they can use part of to pay their transportation services, right? So ECG will take that portion at the tier 1 level, and then GMPC will take the other component at the tier 2 level, because they generate revenue that should be enable them to pay, so that we can deal with that problem going forward. Whilst we work separately to increase ECG's inflow, which I'm sure you're very much aware, before April of last year was in the region of some 400 million per month. That has grown to about $1 billion. The measures that they are putting in place is intended to increase that pot by reducing their commercial losses, so that we can generate more revenue to pay for the tier 2.
But in all of that, Mr. Mensah, I don't hear much more about what you're doing to deal with the debt of Ghana Gas, VRA, and Gridco, who are also critical players in the power value chain.
The Ghana Gas and all of them are SOEs. Yes, they need to function. And so what it is that the tier 2, so if ECG generates $1 billion and $43 million, which is about, say, $500 million is going to pay the IPPs, the formula that has been developed in the cash waterfall then takes care of allocations for the rest of them, with some top up from the Ministry of Finance, right? What it then means is that they all have some level of operational capability and no disruptions. But the long-term view is to bring financial health into the sector. And because ECG is the only entity that generates revenue to pay everybody in the value chain, the focus then can be on ECG to improve their operations, reduce their technical and commercial losses, generate more revenue, so that the bills of the local SOEs and IPPs can also be paid. That includes GRA, includes BXC, I believe, includes Minergy, includes Ghana Gas, it includes GMPC for their services and the commodity from Jubilee and all that. The government of Ghana picks the tab on the Sankofa gas, which also is about $49 million per month. Okay, And so that's the structure that we are working with to try and see how we then improve operational efficiency to enable us to generate more revenue.
All right. Let me now bring in the ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee, who also was a former Deputy Power Minister, John Jinapo. Grateful to you for joining us here. Now, government says, well, I've made some payment to WAPCO, and that we won't see Dumso again. Is this an assurance that you can bet your life on that, well, indeed this can happen?
You were told this in July. Don't you remember? The same government told you in July that they had dealt with the situation. They had agreed a payment schedule with WAPCO and that there won't be any problem. That's what they told us, if you recall. It's not the first time we are experiencing this challenge. So it's not as if it's a new phenomenon. They told us all what Honorable Japat is listing. They have told us they've made tier 1, tier 2. They've agreed on a structure with them. Payment will be made regularly. I've seen letters where WAPCO severally reminded government of its failure to meet the terms of the agreement reached earlier, and even a letter that gave a final caution that we're going to shut the pipeline. Lo and behold, the pipeline was shut. And for the past 2 days, we've witnessed very severe load shedding, which is popularly known in our local parlance as Dumso. So the question is, how can we trust government's assurance going forward? That's the most important thing for me now. Any other thing, we're just beating the issues over and over. And we trust what government is telling us. And are we in a position to ensure that we do not have a reoccurrence of this? The other leg has to do with GridCo, VRA, and Ghana Gas. Government has decided that they will put them at the bottom. They won't be in tier 1. Tier 1 are the IPPs. Tier 2, GridCo and the others. And you've seen GridCo senior staff issue a statement threatening to lay down their stools. Ghana Gas staff have issued a statement threatening to lay down their stools and claiming that the system, the resilience of the system is being compromised because they are not getting enough revenue. As for capacity charges, you would deal with them every day. As we speak, this government has signed on to power purchase agreements that is adding on to the capacity charge. So as for what you call excess capacity, reserve margin or whatever, it's not a new phenomenon. It is for government to address that challenge. Because as we speak today, in 2022, government renegotiated the AXA deal and signed 370 megawatts. It is part of that capacity charge as we speak. So it will continue to be part of it.
All right. But
the issue is how do you address it?
Now, government says it owed WAPCO $19 million, but you are telling us that it was $30 million. Why the difference? Is it that government is not being transparent with us? Or what's the issue?
No, I haven't mentioned. Is it Minister or myself?
Minority was telling us that $30 million is what they owed WAPCO.
No, the previous one was about 20. We haven't mentioned it. I don't know who mentioned the 30.
Okay. Now, we've been running in circles with regards to handling the debt in the energy sector. You've been there before. How can we really deal with this issue so that it doesn't become, this whole yearly affair of somebody threatening to cut off power before the state, moves into settle?
The first thing is the losses. The losses is moved to about 31%, almost 10 percentage points. That is a huge loss. For every power sold, about 31% is unaccounted for. Based on the latest figures they brought to us in Parliament, ECG's own figures is moved from about 21 thereabout to about 30%, almost 10% in terms of a widening of the losses. If you close that loss, then you will be reducing the burden. Indeed, if 19 million is a major problem, then we have a serious problem to deal with. If 19 million can lead to this situation, then we have a huge problem as a country. Because I thought that a country the size of Ghana and given our GDP, 19 million should not lead to load shedding of about 600 megawatts. So the losses, that is one.
Okay.
Two is the unnecessary interference. There is too much political interference in even the cash waterfall mechanism itself. And the industry players are complaining. It's not me. Gridco is complaining. Ghana Gas is complaining. So it's not in the minority. The industry sector players themselves, they are complaining. The other issue has to do with Ministry of Finance. If the Ministry of Finance mismanages the economy and the cedi depreciates the level to which we saw, then government must be willing and ready to make that payment. The last one has to do with this unnecessary tax they are imposing. I thought that they would have rather converted that into the tariff adjustment so that revenue will be available for the power sector players. Because to pay about 21% extra on your electricity consumption, a domestic consumer, and that only goes to central government for central government expenditure. When you can't even get revenue, I have a problem with that. And that's my personal opinion.
Okay.
I think that is uncalled for, is needless.
Mr. Mensah, now you are giving assurance that Dumso won't happen. Now we are aware that TAPCO, is down for maintenance. We understand that even in Akosombo, one turbine that gives us 110 megawatt of power is also down due to transformer challenges. We understand that TICO has one turbine that's also down for maintenance. All of these take away from your capacity. How then do you look into the face of Ghanaians and say that indeed there won't be Dumso when we know that some of these teething challenges still exist?
But of course, the 510, not 600, that was taken off 2 days ago, has no bearing whatsoever on other power plants that you mentioned. Okay. Indeed, Ameri, post the expiration of the BOOT, has not been turned for a single day. But we still do not have any generational challenges. Okay. Indeed, the 1.7 billion outstanding debt, there's almost a 30-35% of it that is excess capacity. And let's just assume that AXA, which was 100% take or pay, which government converted into a take and pay, because if you decommission and your demand is growing and you would need power between 2027 going, it makes sense that a power plant that is already in country, you negotiate and give them some minimum assured dispatch, okay, and allow them to stay here rather than take it away and bring it back. But we'll have the debate on the capacity issues. Truth is this, that yes, the local IPPs and other service providers in the value chain, and he mentions VRA and Gridco and Ghana Gas, they are all part of the cash waterfall mechanism. They all participated in agreeing the proportions of their invoices that can make them sustainable in terms of their operations. Of course, the long-term ECG issue has to be resolved. I agree. There's no dispute whatsoever with respect to an unacceptable 30% commercial loss being associated with electricity distribution. And so we have hit them on that we need to find ways to ensure that ECG's efficiency is improved to increase the pot. But these are state-owned enterprises. And so long as they are self-sustainable and they are not necessarily generating profit, but can keep their staff, their operations intact, we feel that in the interim that is workable, as opposed to private sector investors who have made significant investment in bringing
but this same cash waterfall mechanism isn't working, and that's why some of these companies have a challenge.
I'm not so sure whether the description that you give it that is not working is accurate. I'm saying that there's been challenges. Mm-hmm. Hold on. Mm-hmm. And so we've reviewed it. That's when we put in the tiered mechanism, because in the past, the IPPs were paid for by the bills of the IPPs were paid by Ministry of Finance. Now it's not the case. Gas, the Francophone gas, was paid for by Ministry of Finance. That is continuing. Okay, the Jubilee commodity is paid for under the cash waterfall mechanism. They've not been able to generate sufficient enough flows to pay for all of it. And so we are discussing how Ministry of Finance then comes in to support. Because bear in mind that because of the negotiations that President Kufuor had with the Jubilee partners, 200 billion scraps, I believe, of gas was delivered to us for free. That has been consumed. Exactly. And so, post the foundation volume, we need to pay for that commodity. And so, at the time that we're working the cash waterfall mechanism, the Jubilee commodity was zeroized. Now it has a value that has to be worked in. So what it is that we've done is to say that, okay, let's ring fence the IPPs, okay, and make sure that their bills are current, and the rest of the money that is left distributed per the agreed mechanism across the local IPPs and the SOEs, and a top up from the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
The reference to Gridco and their senior staff, it was interesting. Just this morning, it came out of a meeting that was held at the Ministry of Finance that, in fact, their approved cash waterfall mechanism allocation was 107 million Ghana cedis over the 5-month period. What they have, in fact, actually received was 164. So there's actually overpayment to what Gridco with respect to their cash waterfall mechanism allocation.
Okay, so Mr. Mensah, but
so, the question as to what warranted their senior staff writing the letter. But of course, that's a matter that we are still engaging on.
All right.
Can I make a point?
Now, as we speak, Mr. Mensah, as we speak, you are saying that we shouldn't be worried about the fact that some plants are not working, but just a 500 megawatt of power could plunge a lot of us into darkness. So why are you saying we shouldn't be worried when TICO is 330 is not in power, a turbine which produces 110 is not in power? If you add all of them together, that's more than 500 megawatt. We should be worried.
Important. I'm saying that the reason for the outage over the last 2 days was not generation. It was fuel. And in fact, that was the problem that we encountered over the 12-month, 4-year period of Dumso. It wasn't generation. And the data speaks to this. It was fuel, gas, unavailability.
All right.
And so I'm not saying that...
Just a quick point.
Power plants... No, let me finish, then you can come in. I'm not saying that the power plants that you make reference to that have gone, that are undergoing maintenance now, are not important. But I'm saying that apart from those that are hydro-powered, if any of them were available today and you didn't have gas to power it, you needed to buy alternative fuel to power the plants. Okay? We had a program in 2023.
So Mr.
Mensah, a program in 2024.
Forgive me, but because of time, you're saying that there won't be Doomsday tonight, right? In the next 30 seconds.
Well, the information that I have from the SCC, that's the System Control Center, there shouldn't be Doomsday tonight because the gas issue has been resolved.
Thank you very much.
And the point that I really wanted to make was, if we say that Doomsday is an event and that anytime that it takes place one day is Doomsday, then we all have a working definition of what Doomsday is. However, if it is protracted, it spans weeks and months and years, and that's what constitutes Doomsday, to make someone say Doomsday is back, then we can also have a conversation whether the event of 2 nights ago constitutes Doomsday is back, or that a protracted 2012, 2016 event that we encountered is what really amounts to Doomsday.
All right, thank you. I'm grateful to you.
In time, we can agree or disagree.
Okay.
But I'm saying that Doomsday is not back, contrary to what Mr. Mahama and his team are saying. That
thank you very much. I'm
belongs
grateful.
to their era, never to be resurrected.
Thank you very much. But John, you wanted to make a point quickly in the next 30 seconds. Yeah.
He says that they need the power in 2027. That's what he says. And that even though they need the power in 2027, they've decided to sign in 2022 and take or pay on that plant till 2027.
No,
I mean, listeners must be very, very worried.
That's not what I said.
That's what you said. Go and listen to the interview.
That's what I said. You finished.
You said you would, if they decommission, they'll come back in 2027. Who told you there is only AXA that can come in 2027? It's an old plant. Who told you can't get new plants, better efficient plants, cheaper plants against 2027? Why did you not engage in competitive tendering? Why did you decide that you want to go for sole sourcing for AXA? I mean, these are legitimate things. Finally, Look, you cannot turn facts on their head. Check the Energy Commission statistics for 2016. I have it here. Akosomo Dam, the hydrology was so low that you could depend on only 500 megawatts. It's 1,020 megawatts. So when you come live on air and you say that in 2016, all you needed was fuel, Mr. Minister, you don't need fuel to power the Akosomo plant. That is why we brought AXA.
Okay, all right.
That is why we brought this one today. You have found it necessary.
Gentlemen, I'm grateful to you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time here. This has been Top Story, brought to you always by Vodafone. My name has been Samuel Kojo Brace. Up next is Newsnight with MFA Apau. There's more on the Doomsaw on Newsnight. Stay.